we're in a very interesting space in South Africa where we've got this big black market where people will not, because we haven't paid any attention to that. We have not paid attention to the guy on the street corner selling dacha from Lesotho or from Swaziland that came through this whole long supply chain down. We're ignoring that, and that is still where the bulk of the dacha in South Africa is sold, millions per day.
Yes.
And then we've got the guy buying from a dealer that nobody even knows. These guys growing in their closets and at home, supplying 1 or 2 users, 3 or 4 users, basically running their own little private club without knowing it, was doing it really private. So we've reached some sort of a cap, which I think is interesting. I don't know how to get around it. We have a lot of faith, or a lot of people have a lot of faith in hemp to activate a lot of interest in the plant. I think that will also take a bit of time. In the end, I mean, we're just so lucky in South Africa to have this constitutional ruling, constitutional court ruling. We've got this constitution, which is the apex law of our country. And it really protects us. And this concept of privacy is amazing. And I think that is what is also maybe now made this industry pull back a little bit, because people saw the value of privacy, used the opportunity to come to the fore to maybe build some networks that they feel now quite comfortable in operating, and pulled it back into a private space, which I think is this probably, if you go and look at the intent of that ruling, that is how it should be sort of handled, maybe, until proper regulation comes out there.
Yes, now...
So yeah, we're in an interesting space now.
We are in a very interesting space, because this laws that we've got now around private use is quite unique if you look at the global scale, how it's happening everywhere else in the world. It's almost like we've got this potential to not let the industry be monopolized, and let the legacy growers and everyone that's always been working with the plant almost also get a bit of an opportunity to participate.
So for the cannabis community in general, I would say that I come from the Netherlands, where the cannabis is quite alive. Maybe one of the most alive countries, at least last century in Europe, maybe in the world. And coming to South Africa, I've been surprised by the amount of cannabis I've come across everywhere in the country. I've traveled quite a bit. How many people are involved in here, and also how relaxed and open-minded the mindset is from the average citizen in South Africa to this topic, which is promising, which is very much promising for the future, because if you have enough people in your society that are open to this type of change towards legalization, towards decriminalization, then the chances of it happening are high.
So if you go to the USA, I mean, in 23 states it's legal, 39's got medical legal. Not in one of those states are people allowed to grow cannabis at home.
No, that's the thing.
Holland, Spain, Germany's proposing 4 plants now. I said I want to open a nursery there very quickly. But I mean, because it's the first time that they're allowed to do that.
Here in Germany, a new law partially legalizing cannabis has come into effect. At midnight, hundreds gathered in central Berlin to celebrate the moment. Under the legislation, over 18s can now possess up to 25 grams in public for personal use and cultivate up to 3 plants at home. But the legislation has its critics, who point to health and law and order concerns. Germany's conservative opposition says they'll revoke the law if they come to power.
Weed smokers in Germany are lighting up legally for the first time from April 1st. Many are celebrating.
You know the pictures? When cows are allowed out to pasture for the first time after winter? They jump with joy, and of course that will be us at the beginning of April.
But the new cannabis measures are only a partial legalization. So what do they mean exactly? Adults over 18 in Germany are now allowed to carry up to 25 grams of cannabis on them. They can smoke weed in public, but not within 100 meters of schools, sports facilities, or playgrounds. People can also grow up to 3 plants at home and store up to 50 grams of cannabis for personal use. For now, there won't be any shops selling it directly to customers. The only way to buy weed legally will be through a so-called Cannabis Social Club membership, but only from July 1st.
Social clubs can have up to 500 members, and they all actively participate in the cannabis production. For each individual member, the club can grow up to 3 plants and can thus produce a member's monthly supply, which is a maximum of 50 grams, and then give it to the member.
Produzieren und dann das einzelne Mitglied abgeben.
Dutch coffee shop culture is often held up as an example by pro-legalization campaigners, where the drug is sold legally to adults since 1976. Possession of up to 5 grams and growing up to 5 plants is also safe from prosecution, but the Netherlands are now far from alone. In 2021, the Maltese Parliament passed the Authority on the Responsible Use of Cannabis Bill. Met with jubilation, this legalised the use of recreational cannabis and allowed for the creation of cannabis clubs, operating on a non-profit basis, where members could purchase a limited quantity of the drug to be consumed in private. To prevent mass cannabis tourism, this only applies to Maltese residents. Spain is among the countries with a policy of decriminalisation. It's not legal, but possession and consumption in private spaces are not prosecuted. In public spaces, it can still carry a hefty fine, and sale of the drug for recreational use is a criminal offence enforced by prison sentences. France, Hungary and the UK are among those still upholding the toughest bans. But even France, where the consumption of the drug is punishable by a €200 fine, it is on trial as a medical drug until 2024, and non-medical CBD, one of the active ingredients in the so-called devil's lettuce, has been authorised for sale in the country.
They never ever have been able to grow outdoors. They're forced into their closets. Still, like we were 15 years ago, 10 years ago still in the country. So this right to be able to grow cannabis at home is significant.
Yes.
And I think we're allowed to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
We fought hard for that right. So, and it irks me to see people jumping on this opportunity who's got no background in cannabis. For me, it is important that people have some background in cannabis, at least a story that's believable around cannabis, and or a heart for it. You've got to have a heart for the plant, and that's that intent. It's important.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah, if your intent is money, I've got bad news for you. This plant's going to somehow kick you out.
Yeah, the plant has got a massive. What I see, it's almost as if the plant has got a spirit of its own. Like it drives a lot of unity. But I see, so as you say, if your intent isn't right, you're not going to last. You can see it happen.
I think the plant definitely has some personality of its own. But I also think that your intent gets transferred to the plant if you work with it too, and with whatever you work with. And that cannabis is just very open to it. So the farmer's intent is very, very important.
So now the other side of this question, it also ties in with this, is like, how do you feel about the future of cannabis in South Africa? Do you think there's a lot of potential there?
Yeah.
Do you think we're headed in the right direction?
I think we are headed in the right direction. I like the diversification that's happening. We were forced back, like I said, this whole process, we were building networks and forced back into privacy. I think provides the scope for a massive movement in cannabis, started from a cooperative way, where we've got small cooperatives, because whatever you want to call it, if you've got a little private club, it is basically a cooperative.
Yeah.
But where we have a system where we can freely trade within and between cooperatives, where I could be the specialist in providing genetics. You could have the best fucking distillate maker who could then invest in making proper distillate for the next club's group of women who are the best bakers, who can use that as an input. So that we can support each other as clubs and cooperatives and initiatives, and all of us are not forced to do everything ourselves. And I think that would really, I would love to see that happen. Whether we will see it happen, I don't know. I see all these new initiatives, whether it's Section 21, whether it's a hemp permit, whether it's an IKS permit, all of those they are little sandboxes, and that's what government going to call them now. We will play a bit, and we will see what works.
Yes.
But in the end, as far as the traditional growers are concerned, who we really want to protect, we must maybe go and ask the question and go back there and ask what do they want to do? Do they even want to grow cannabis still?
Yes.
Maybe find them a better option, or then find them a higher quality or a higher grade product. But we're talking about a vast number of people, and an industry that disappeared. That whole industry from our Eastern Cape and itself supplying into our local market has disappeared during COVID. And that's all being fed out of Lesotho and Swaziland. We became a net importer of street dagga within 3 years, which is scary.
Yeah,
and those guys need to be obviously, they need to be included into all these discussions.
Because they've been working with the plant for all these years, way before the 2018 ruling.
Yes, and then if you go even further back, you have the Bushmen and the Khoi, who's got a long history. They've got a shamanic history that might go back 20,000 years after use of the plant. Exactly. We've got cultivation history going 600 years back in the Western Cape, which, I mean, cannot be ignored as we go along. So if there's any talk about IP and rights and all that, the first users of the word dagga must be included in that, for instance.
Yes.
And then you've got to, if you talk regional appellations and all those things, I mean, you've got to look at these, at what we still have left of our indigenous genetics and bring that to the fore and all those things. I mean, but it's a complex issue. Really complex. I don't know how we got there now.
Yeah, that's 100%. Okay, so this also leads nicely into this question is, to you, what makes South African cannabis and our culture around the plant, what makes it unique and special?
The long history is the first thing. That sets us apart from most other countries. Yeah, there's Afghanistan, which got a long history. Pakistan, the Far East, it's got a longer history maybe of dagga growing and use than us. But apart from that, we've got a very, very long history of using this plant in South Africa. It was an integral part of our history. And then also the prohibition of the plant is also, South Africa played a prominent role in that. I mean, we actually had the first anti-cannabis laws in the 1880s, dealing with the Indian population that they used cannabis to target at them, especially in the Free State, I think. So those kind of things make South Africa special, that we have this long history. And then we've got this deep culture of daily cannabis use. Yes. We've got millions of people using cannabis daily, right through our population. It is like alcohol is probably a leveling factor. Cannabis goes further than that, goes beyond that. Yes. It is a plant that everybody knows. It's a product that everybody knows, and a lot of people use it daily, and we cannot ignore that. Also.
Yeah.
And then we've also got a deep-rooted, and I'm always impressed if I meet people in the home healing space, where people are really so knowledgeable, and we have tens of thousands of patients in this country that are basically being kept alive on cannabis medicine. And that is also a strong force that I think will come to the fore, where we will ignore big pharma's isolation and then derivatization and then registration and certification and testing and all that we will go the traditional route with cannabis medicine. It's a dream of mine, but I think the horse has bolted. It's got to run also.
Yeah, it's busy happening. Okay, lovely. So how can cannabis contribute towards our society and our economy?
Look, we know that cannabis can heal a lot of diseases, or can assist with the healing of a lot of diseases. So that's one aspect where I think that if we can get to a point where we can trial medicine through our clinic system, those kind of things, where we can really get it down to the people that really need it the most at an early stage, not only as palliative care, because at the moment people jump on cannabis when grandpa's already dying.
Yes.
Medical aids run out. They don't want him to die in hospital, so take him home, put him on cannabis medicine, and it's an end of life aid.
It's not a cure.
Yeah. So I would like to see the healing aspect happen. I would like to see people use cannabis as food a lot more. Yes. I mean, just as a marokgo that you cook, it's already a very good substance. So I try to encourage that people see the value of cannabis in the nutrition space. So hemp as food has been close to my
So
heart.
not
always.
necessarily psychoactive.
No,
like
not the
LSD.
psychoactive aspect. So that's just the next aspect. So we've got medical. Obviously, society needs, a lot of people in society needs to get high. They're
Yeah.
gonna get high some way. And
They
I
need
think
to meditate
cannabis
and relax and break
is a
free from
safe
the
way
stresses.
to relax. So call it what you will, but it's recreational adult use. I mean, it is for you to relax and party with your friends. So that, of course, I mean that's what it's always been about.
Yeah.
People didn't care where it's grown or what it is. They wanted some dacha to relax, and,
Which is also medicinal
or
in
to
itself.
empower them or whatever the reason. So that's self-medicating, yes.
Yeah.
But it's got a recreational aspect. So
Yes.
obviously it's got that role to play. But where I've seen the biggest influence is that we've been talking urban farming since the 1970s when permaculture came to the fore, and we realized that so maybe agriculture, we're not doing it the right way. And people were coming up with all these concepts of urban farming, growing tomatoes vertically, growing lettuce in an old parking lot, trying to be self-sufficient in your back garden, keeping some chickens, trying an aquaponic system. And all that was just experimental. Nobody could ever really make that work financially.
Yeah.
Now, for the first time, we've got a crop that really ignites urban farming, where you can have now someone in a township with a little back garden blocked off by black plastic with a few lights, farming cannabis and doing that economically, having his whole family live and eat off that. That is unique. I mean, I think we really should encourage that and look at not only our rural farmers who've been doing that for a long time, but also our newer groups of urban farmers and peri-urban farmers that have come to the fore, that are now growing for clubs, that are supplying a higher grade quality cannabis at the same price into their townships, which is also important because we've talked about the other aspect, the recreational aspect, because then it enhances that again. And it also enhances the medical aspect, because the guy who makes the oil in the township gets a better product to make his oil from. Whatever, I mean, that supply chain and stream means through.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And then there's obviously the industrial aspect as well, which as we discussed earlier, we've
yes.
still got a lot of hurdles
There's a long way to go with that. Yes, cannabis can do a lot of stuff. We can make fuel from it. We can make clothing from it. We can make 20,000 different anything plastic, cellulose. Okay, you can make any plastic from.
Yeah.
It doesn't say that we should do it. And we've always got to look at the economics of it. And if you've got an oil price sitting at around $80 a vat where it currently sits, none of these projects will become viable. You need a real scarcity of oil. So by focusing, in my opinion, on hemp as an answer to all these problems that we see, we are foreseeing quite a dark future.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
We're foreseeing a future where we've gone over peak oil, where fossil fuel energy has become really expensive, where people are really hungry because of that, where we've got this big transition to renewable energies that are not working, and where the need to grow plants for fuel would become really important. So yes, for a future like that, hemp is the plant. It is the plant for the future. You could not put 100 scientists in the world together in a room and have them design a better plant or a better answer to the future than what we have in hemp.
Hemp in energy. It's actually a remarkable thing. We can use natural raw material. Hemp can be used to power just about everything. Pretty amazing. Food crops like wheat and corn are currently used to make ethanol, which is an alternative fuel. Hemp ethanol frees up food production and grows using less resources. Hemp doesn't require pesticides, which is healthier for the environment and for people. Hemp biodiesel is made from hemp seed oil, all natural. It has a 97% conversion rate. It can be used in any conventional diesel engine and on regular vehicles. Hemp fibers make a carbon nanomaterial that we call Hexon. This is part of the future. Hexon is used to make better battery cathodes. The power density of 20 kilowatts per kilogram, energy density over 200. These are remarkable times. Be a part of the future. Biofiber industries.
Whether that's the answer to the present is what we have to investigate really carefully. Because we don't want to see big investors and government lose a lot of money on hemp again. Let's see what's practical now. I want to see where's the money in the plant now.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, our intent is not money. But if your intent is money, I want to tell you where to go find it.
Yeah.
So this plant needs to be analyzed, and we're working on that. We want to see if you say this plant's got 70% cellulose. Yeah, is it true? We found 70% cellulose, but what does that mean in gram or kilogram per hectare? And what can we sell it for after it's processed? And we need to find that out rather quickly through research before we can really ignite or start to talk about an industrial hemp industry.
We need to know
It's an industry
what
for
we're
the
talking
future.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, there's money, probably investment money, VC capital going into future type industries. But that is really, I think, at this stage how we should see it.
Yes, dit maak baie sin. Thanks, Natie. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Okay, we're going to go to a little bit of a different question. Throughout your journey, you're obviously very passionate about the plant and all that. Maybe difficult to isolate one thing, but we can elaborate as we go. What is the most important thing that you have learned through cannabis, through your interaction with the plant and through your journey with cannabis? What is the most important thing that you have learned?
Yes, yeah, I didn't prep for that question. No, I mean, it's the connection between this plant and humanity. That this is really the people's plant. That's something that I still learn every day. I mean, it is also what makes it so unique and so difficult to deal with in government circles and in medical circles, is that this thing really comes from the people. And it's got a very, very close connection to humans. So that thing about Sister V, a human companion plant, that I think is important. I mean, and yeah, I mean, for me as a Christian and someone that is quite spiritual, I mean, that really came to the fore, that this plant is put on the earth for a very specific reason, for such a time as this. We can talk about the 20,000 year history. We ain't seen nothing yet. It is such a time as this, that it was put on the earth for. So I mean, and it's for us as humans. I mean, that is really
definitely a lot of healing with the plant, not just on a physical level, but also on a deeper spiritual level. As you shared with your testimony, if it wasn't for your interaction with that plant, you wouldn't have had that epiphany of that equality amongst your fellow citizen. You know, it was the plant that encouraged that, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers can also testify the same thing, where there were times in their life where just through that interaction with cannabis, there was some sort of thought or something which sparked something greater, you know.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's definitely.
And then also the growing of the plant has also got a big healing aspect. We see that happen, where Opa is now really, really ill. He's got cancer. They get him some fecal oil from someone. They give it to him, and he sort of doesn't die. He just hangs around, and he starts to get better. And he gets to a point where he says he's not going to pay 300 or 400 or 500 rand for this little bit of black oil. He's going to make his own, and he starts to grow the plant.
Yes.
And he learns to get a few seeds, and he starts to grow it. And then the healing really comes by being involved with the plant itself. To grow powerful medicine like that in your garden is powerful. And it is something that's put in our hands. We don't have to run to Big Pharma. You don't have to run to the pharmacy to get it. You can literally grow your own medicine in your own garden. And if I can say, if there's one thing that everything we do, what stands central, what our ultimate goal is is to get everyone to grow cannabis at home.
Yes.
That is all that is really legal at this stage, if we think about it. I mean, you can also consume it. But I just, because of that connection that I see that is so important with this plant. If you grow one plant, even indoors in your house, little love palm or whatever, grow a cannabis plant. Even if you don't ever smoke that flower.
And it's something very interesting that happens when you actually, instead of just acquiring the flower from another source, so there's something very interesting that happens when you grow the plant yourself. It's as if the genetics of that plant adapts to your energy and is designed specifically, grows specifically for your body, to your that body. It's like an energy exchange between you and the plant.
Definitely. And I mean, and we know that in something like wine. We talk about terroir. We've got the story that you have to eat local honey, that you have to have yourself stung by a local bee. I mean, things like that, where you really have that. Yeah. So it's the same thing about that your own medicine, or medicine that comes from your own area, has got an energy that's there specifically for what is going to bother you in your environment.
It's like a symbiotic relationship between us and nature. You know, it's one living thing. So we've ran through all the questions here. There's one last one which I always ask. And that's just a final positive message for the cannabis community out there from your side.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're still here, I mean, I'm not going to talk to the guys that jumped in the past 6 months. I don't have a good message for them. But the guys that's been around, that's still around, now it's just fast pace. You've been here for too long now to let go of it. We need people that's been in the industry for a while. Try and group yourself as much as possible. We need unity. We need one voice. We need a unified industry body, which could be made up of individual interest groups, but we really need a unified voice. But overall, if we allow this plant to lead us along this path, I think we will be successful, whatever success means for you. It's a long message. Define success. I think that's important, because it's your intent with this plant before you even start with this or go further with this industry. Don't start now. That is my message.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many space now for new entrants that come into this industry for the money. They're going to burn their fingers. Let's focus on the people that are in this industry, whatever that means. It's been around for a while, and group them together. Byt vas. Vasbyt.
Cool.
We don't know how long this is going to take. I mean, home healing can take a long time still. Before we will be allowed, if ever, to cook up a cannabis oil in our kitchen and go give it to a cancer patient. I mean, it just sounds ridiculous if you think about it in the eyes of Big Pharma.
Yeah.
I mean, so we might have a long road again ahead of us. And for that, we will need a unified voice. People, and if we have to go back to the streets, we have to. We can't go back to the streets with 30 people. We need thousands. So we need a unified voice, a collective voice, critical mass. And I think a lot of people have pulled back into their little private groupings. And we need to
stand together,
cooperate a lot more, definitely.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time and all your wonderful insights, Natie. I really appreciate it. Thank you, man.
It was nice having you here. We're going to go for a quick walk through.
Have a nice walkie.
Yeah.
Little smoke break.
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. Please go check out Dacha Pharmacy, Cure Labs, Natie Ferreira. Some wonderful stuff they're doing here. And we're going to take a nice little walk through now and show you what's happening in the garden and in the greenhouse. Cool, dankie Natie.
So kry jy eers koffie en water.
Ja, dankie man. Yes, dit was amazing. Ek waardeer